Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Popcorn Pimps review. Today, once again, we'll just be doing audio. I'm having trouble with my camera, and I really need to fix that. And it's just going to be me today. I'm your host, Ruben. Abraham and Hector are both MIA. I'm not sure if Abraham's seen Kingsman yet. I know Mr. has, and I believe he liked it. He gave it an 8.5, if I do recall. But yeah, so let's get into the Kingsman The Golden Circle review. I didn't hate it as much as critics, but I didn't love it as much as Hector did. I would give it a solid 7. It wasn't, and I kind of knew going in, it wasn't going to be as good as the first one, and it wasn't. But it did have some good things about it. For one, I thought the cast was great. Solid acting all around. Channing Tatum, Halle Berry, Jeff Bridges, Pedro Pascal. They came in and they did their job. If anything, I thought Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges should have had bigger roles. Especially Jeff Bridges. I really liked him as Champ, head of the Statesman. Julianne Moore, I did like her role, and once again, that was one of the problems that I felt she should have had a bigger role in the movie, as the main villain. Her and her whole organization. So there was solid action once again. It was really slick, real nice. The beginning in the car, there's a car chase and a fight between Eggsy and I believe it's Charlie. He was in the first one. He was one of the rejected Kingsman recruits. It was really good. Slick. It was a great opener. Another thing I really loved about the action was all the lasso stuff with Pedro Pascal's whiskey character. Something you don't really see often is like lasso type fights, and I thought it was real good. It was fresh, it was new, really solid. And that goes to one of the things I didn't like about this movie was I felt Pedro Pascal was wasted a little bit. As much as I liked his three big action scenes, I felt they could have done more. Spoiler, he dies at the end, and I feel he shouldn't have. I kind of like how they make it seem like he was worse than Julianne Moore's character. So just a little background to that. Julianne Moore is this head of this huge drug cartel, of course, called the Golden Circle. And she poisons all her drugs, and she demands that drugs become legal. Or she's going to kill everybody. She won't really stand it out. So, it's up to the Kingsmen who get all their stuff blown up by the Golden Circle. They go to their cousins in America, the Statesmen, where they meet Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, and Pedro Pascal. But it turns out they also meet Halle Berry, who plays a character called Ginger. So they get into trouble. Channing Tatum, turns out he did some drugs, so he's like in a coma or whatever. So which is kind of wasted. What I mentioned earlier, they should have given him a bigger part. But I was fine, I guess. Just how much he was in the promotional material. I felt like his 1 or 2 scenes, they were good scenes, but it was just like, okay, that's it. Same goes for Jeff Bridges. He was like, oh, Jeff Bridges is in this movie, surprise. And it's just like, alright, that was in the trailer, I guess. But yeah, Pedro Pascal's whiskey, he turns out he wants to let the people die because his wife was killed by drug dealers, which, I understand. You've been dealing with the death of your wife for all these years, who was pregnant with your unborn child. So I can understand why he might want to do that, and they just outright kill him for it. Eggsy and Harry, who is back, by the way. I didn't really like what they did with Harry. The whole amnesia thing, which I guess is very Kingsman because they play on spy movie tropes, and that is a very big spy movie trope. But that being said, I felt he was wasted. They could have easily set him up to be a villain in a future movie. And that's another big problem I had with this movie, was they did a lot of setting up that didn't go anywhere. For instance, Halle Berry mentions that she wanted to be a statesman, but every time a position opened up, whiskey declined. He would always shut it down, and they kind of make it seem like it's because of his wife, but at the same time they kind of make it seem just, oh, it's like, oh, it's because he's a douche, which I don't really feel he is a douche, but you know, whatever, it's not my movie, I guess. They had Elton John in it, who, to be honest, shouldn't have been, or they shouldn't have been given the role. I like the excuse they gave why he wasn't there. So the whole thing was that Poppy kidnapped him because she's a big fan, when Valentine, who was the villain in the first movie, was kidnapping celebrities. So she, you know, made use of the confusion and took him. But then there's this thing where, like, it turns out he can fight, you know, and he did have some pretty good scenes, but the whole ending where his whole action scene was just stupid and unnecessary. Like, they could have given that to Jeff Bridges, they could have given that to Channing Tatum, they could have even given that to Halle Berry. You know, she wanted to be out in the field, like, have her sneak onto the island and fight with them. The ending fight was also kind of meh, more because they had these weird robots that didn't really fit with the aesthetic. I get what they were trying to do, you know, like sharks with a laser beam type thing, but it still didn't feel right. At least those two robot dogs they had. But yeah, another thing I really did like was the way they handled Mark Strong's character, who's Merlin, who was in the first movie, his death. I thought it was very good. To be honest, I felt Harry should have done that, Colin Firth's character, and they should have kept Merlin more as a mentor, because Merlin was, in my opinion, in this movie, more of a badass than Harry was. One of the things was I didn't like the way they treated Whiskey throughout the movie. Going back to Pedro Pascal's character, they just undermined everything he did, and like I didn't like that they shot him right away. Then they justified it by, oh well, technically he was bad. Technically, Harry was wrong and he should have dealt with it. And I hate that everyone's okay with it at the end. You know, another thing I didn't like was this movie was, I don't know why it was unnecessarily loud. I want to play Mad Max Fury Road because ever since that movie came out, a lot of movies that are heavy on action have been doing that. That when the action starts, they ramp up the volume all the way up on the music and everything's 10 times louder than the normal movie is. And it's like, I feel it doesn't have to be that way. Take Baby Driver that came out earlier this year, was not like that, and that's a movie with a lot of music in it. Yeah, so it was unnecessarily loud, and you know, call me old if you want, I just felt that was very unnecessary. Harry's a douche throughout the whole movie. Just more, I did not like him in this movie at all. I thought Colin Firth did a good job being the Harry that they had written for this movie, or I felt they had written for this movie. I didn't like it. And I like that I didn't like it, but it's funny to me that they had to go back and kind of backtrace the ending of the first movie where it's like, oh, you know, it was unnecessary. We didn't want to have to kill everybody in that building, but we did because it was the only way to save the world. But, you know, that was, if you go back and watch that first movie, you do not get, that was their plan A all along was, hey, we're going to hijack and kill everybody. Because, you know, they didn't have to, once they killed Valentine, it was over. They didn't have to kill everybody else. But whatever. And they do make a big old point about that. And I feel the reason they do that is so that they can justify killing Whiskey. Which, like I said, I don't like that they had to do that. As much as I like Julianne Moore's character as Poppy, you know, leader of this cartel, I felt they did not give her a good amount of time like they gave Samuel L. Jackson in the movie before. You know, you understood everything Samuel L. Jackson was doing. And I felt with Julianne Moore, I think it's because it was a simpler premise, it kind of fell flat. That being said, another thing I did not like was the fact that they made us want to care about Eggsy's friends, who weren't even the same friends from the first movie. I don't know if one or two of them were. No, one of them was. Because in the first movie, he has two friends, a skinny white kid and a black kid. And in this movie, he has two black kids and a fat white kid. So it's like, I don't care about these characters. I get they're Eggsy's friends, but I don't care. You know, because there's one who dies in the very beginning because of the Golden Circle, and he wants to find justice. Well, I don't even know if he cares about him, because like they bring him up once and then he's over it. He's more sad about his dog dying, which was kind of sad that his dog died. You know, they killed off Roxy, and they only brought that up once too. And Roxy, if you don't remember, was the female recruit from the first movie, And I was like, well, but they kind of make it seem like maybe she got away, but then they don't bring it back. And I feel that you could have easily have done that where if Whiskey was working or the Statesmen were working with the Golden Circle, you could have brought out Whiskey like, oh, she survived and she found them. She's in America and she's like their undercover agent. But they didn't. Who knows if she comes back in the third one or not. There's a sex scene that I'm guessing was supposed to be the same shock value as the whole, oh, if you save the world, I'll let you stick it in my butt from the first movie. But it was just like, who cares? This is stupid. I mean, I guess some people, found it amusing or whatever. But they had to put a tracker by fingering her. So I guess that's kind of funny. Yeah, like I said, and one of the big things was the Elton John stuff. You know what? I was softer earlier. I hated that. Like the whole ending, it was so unnecessary. It's like you could have had anyone in that role and it would have been better. Anyone by that I mean like Halle Berry or Channing Tatum or Jeff Bridges or even Roxy, and it was just so stupid. And I hate when movies do that where at the end of the movie, I'm not sure if he was supposed to be Matthew Vaughn was supposed to be satirical with it or not. But there was that whole where, oh, everyone's happy, we forgive everybody, no questions asked at the end of it. And I just hate when movies do that, especially when they killed one of their members. And I, like, the whole Friends and even his girlfriend, Tildy, the princess from the first movie, they're like being poisoned and they're like, he has to save them. It didn't feel as urgent as the mom killing the little sister. I guess that was just more emotional. Than these two. Like I could care less if he made it or not on time. And when you watch the movie, the way the time goes, they shouldn't have made it because some people were already dying, and it's just like I don't understand how these two made it, but whatever. Yeah, one of his friends the one that did get poisoned should have died. But anyways, that was my take on it. Like I said, it's a 7. I mean, overall, it wasn't a terrible movie. I don't want to give off that impression. It was solid for what it was. However, I wouldn't go expecting you're going to get the same quality as the first one. I don't know why. And like I said, I thought some of the characters that they got were super underused. Or at least... And it's sad that they put Elton John over more than Channing Tatum or Jeff Bridges. At the end, they're like, oh, the Statesman and the Kingsman, they're uniting. They should just make the Statesman because technically they have all the money now. They have all the resources. But that's just my opinion. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm out. So if you liked the video you just saw, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And you can always follow us on Twitter at Popcorn Pimps.